Ambassador Zorp-X stared at the latest transmission from Earth with all three of his optical organs, desperately searching for hidden meaning in what appeared to be, yet again, another politely worded rejection of the Galactic Council's alliance offer. His antennae twitched nervously as he read the message for the 47th time. Dear distinguished representatives of the Galactic Council, thank you for your generous offer of alliance and protection. We deeply appreciate your continued interest in Earth's well-being. While we are honored by the proposal, we feel that at this time, such an arrangement might not be the most advantageous for either party. Perhaps we could revisit this discussion at a more opportune moment? Warmest regards, Office of Terrestrial Extraterrestrial Relations. They're doomed. They're absolutely doomed, Zorp-X muttered, his color-shifting skin taking on the deep mauve of extreme anxiety. Why won't they accept our help? Don't they understand the galaxy is teeming with predatory civilizations? The Council Chamber, a vast amphitheater designed to accommodate representatives of over 3,000 species, was nearly empty. Only the Emergency Response Committee remained, having spent the last 6 standard cycles trying to convince Earth to accept protection from the Council. Ambassador called out General Creeks, her crystalline form glittering with frustration. This is the 12th rejection this cycle. Clearly, our approach isn't working. 13th, actually corrected Zorp-X, his bureaucratic nature compelling him to maintain accuracy even in crisis. They sent another one while you were in quantum meditation. The third committee member, Data Analyst Pod Unit 7, rolled forward on its smooth metallic surface. Its monotone voice emerged from its speaker array. Statistical analysis indicates a 99.97% probability that Earth will face catastrophic invasion within the next solar rotation if they remain unprotected. Their persistent refusal to accept aid suggests either severe cognitive impairment or... The unit paused, its processors whirring. ... They have already been compromised by hostile forces. Zorp-X's skin shifted to the pale yellow of sudden inspiration. What if? What if we're not being dramatic enough? Humans seem to appreciate what they call straight talk. Perhaps we should be more direct. General Cricks's crystalline appendages clinked together in agreement. Yes, let's send them images of worlds that refused our protection. Show them the consequences. Calculating optimal horror to hope ratio for persuasive imaging. Pod Unit 7 announced. Zorp-X began composing the new message, his appendages flying over the quantum interface. Urgent Earth, in immediate danger. Your civilization stands on the brink of annihilation. Without Council protection, you face inevitable invasion by the Vraxan hordes, possible consumption by the hive mind of Sector 7, definite economic exploitation by the Ferengi Trading Consortium, probable conversion into a vacation resort by the Galactic Tourism Bureau. Please respond immediately. This is not a drill. P.S. We have attached images of what happened to the last 3 worlds that declined our protection. The response came back within minutes. Dear esteemed Ambassador Zorp-X, we thank you for your concerned message and the rather creative artwork attached. While we appreciate the thoroughness of your warning, we must respectfully decline at this time. Perhaps we could schedule a casual lunch meeting next quarter to discuss this further. Best wishes. Office of Terrestrial Extraterrestrial Relations. EPS. The Tourism Bureau's resort designs actually look quite lovely. Would you mind forwarding their contact information? Zorp-X's skin turned the deep blue of despair as he slumped over his console. They think we're joking. The most dire warning we've ever issued, and they think it's some sort of diplomatic entertainment. Expanding Statistical Analysis Pod Unit 7 announced. New variable detected. Possibility that humans are all completely insane. General Cricks's crystalline form dimmed thoughtfully. Or perhaps, they're so primitive they don't even understand the concept of danger. Zorp-X straightened up suddenly, his skin cycling through a rainbow of emotions. No, there's something we're missing. Nobody can be this oblivious. Call an emergency session of the full council. We need to understand what's really going on with Earth before it's too late. As the chamber's quantum communicators began signaling the council members, Zorp-X couldn't shake the feeling that they were all missing something obvious. Something that would explain why the humans kept responding to apocalyptic warnings with meeting invitations and requests for restaurant recommendations. He just hoped they'd figure it out before the humans got themselves killed by their own politeness. 50 years earlier, in what would become known as the Thompson Incident among Council bureaucrats, humanity had its first official contact with the Galactic Council. Looking back, this was probably where all the confusion started. Jake Thompson was not Earth's most qualified diplomat. He wasn't even supposed to be at the first contact meeting. But when the original representative came down with a severe case of food poisoning from some questionable sushi, Jake, a mid-level State Department employee whose main qualification was being in the right place at the wrong time, found himself facing 36 alien species in what was supposed to be a routine meet and greet. The Council had chosen a neutral space station for the meeting, hoping to impress but not overwhelm the primitive humans. They needn't have bothered with the scaled-down approach. Jake spent the first 10 minutes complimenting the retro chic design of their fastest available quantum transport vessel. "This is just wonderful," Jake had said, examining the ship's exterior with genuine appreciation. "Really loving the whole vintage sci-fi aesthetic you've got going here. Very classic." A younger Zorp-X, then just a junior diplomatic aide, made careful notes. Humans appreciate traditional vessel designs. Possible cultural taboo against advanced technology. The misunderstandings only escalated from there. High Chancellor Vexnar, a being composed entirely of sentient plasma contained within an ornate environmental suit, began the formal introduction. "We welcome Earth to the galactic community. Our scans indicate your civilization has just achieved basic faster-than-light travel capabilities." "Oh, that's so kind of you to notice," Jake interrupted smoothly, years of customer service experience kicking in. "We've been doing our best with what we have. Your own technological achievements are just remarkable, though. That environmental suit must be incredibly advanced." Vexnar preened, their plasma formed glowing brighter. In their notes they wrote, "Humans show appropriate awe at basic containment technology. Clearly pre-industrial in many areas." The meeting continued with various council representatives outlining the benefits of joining their alliance. With each offer of technological, military or economic assistance, Jake deployed increasingly elaborate forms of professional deflection. "A planetary defense system? How thoughtful. We'll definitely take that under advisement. Antimatter power generation? We'll have to run that by our committee. A post-scarcity economic model? Let me circle back to you on that one. Fascinating proposal. Let's put a pin in that for now." The council representatives were growing increasingly concerned. In their experience, most civilizations at Earth's perceived development level would be falling over themselves to accept any one of these offers. Instead, this human kept finding new and creative ways to not commit to anything while somehow making them feel good about being turned down. During a brief recess, Jake stepped out to get some coffee from what he assumed was a matter replicator, but the council thought was their most advanced food synthesis technology. They watched in horror as he casually reprogrammed it to make a proper espresso instead of the standard nutrient paste. "Did you see that?" whispered one council member to another. "They must be so desperate for real food that they're willing to risk molecular destabilization just to modify our primitive synthesizers." Jake returned, sipping his perfectly crafted espresso. "Thanks so much for the meeting, everyone. Really productive session. We should definitely do lunch sometime." The council took this as a cry for help. Clearly, the humans were so resource-starved they were reduced to begging for meals from alien species. As Jake prepared to leave, delivering a masterclass in diplomatic non-committal responses, Zorp-X approached him privately. "Mr. Thompson," he said gravely, his skin the deep green of sincere concern, "please know that the Council stands ready to help Earth in its time of need. You don't have to maintain this brave face. We understand." Jake, thinking this was just standard diplomatic courtesy, deployed his ultimate weapon, the sympathetic head tilt combined with a warm smile. "That's incredibly kind of you to say. We'll definitely keep in touch." That head tilt would be analyzed by Council xenobiologists for years to come. Was it a sign of physical weakness from malnutrition? A cultural gesture of submission? A nervous system disorder that humans were too proud to admit to? As Jake's transport departed, the Council held an emergency session. Their conclusion: Earth was clearly in desperate straits but too proud to admit it. The humans' practiced ability to deflect attention from their problems while maintaining a cheerful facade was seen as either a remarkable evolutionary defense mechanism or a sign of species-wide psychological trauma. Either way, the Council made a solemn vow to keep offering help until Earth finally admitted they needed it. They had no way of knowing that they had just committed themselves to 50 years of increasingly frantic attempts to save a civilization that was doing just fine. Thank you very much. And Jake Thompson? He went back to his desk job, completely unaware that his practiced customer service skills had just established humanity's reputation as either the most stoic or the most delusional species in the galaxy. The performance review he received that year simply noted show's remarkable initiative in interdepartmental communications. The genuine galactic crisis, when it finally arrived, wasn't anything the Council had predicted. It wasn't the Vraxan hordes who had recently discovered meditation and opened a chain of successful yoga retreats. It wasn't the hive mind of Sector 7 too busy with their new reality TV show. And it definitely wasn't the Galactic Tourism Bureau, although their resort proposals were getting increasingly aggressive. No, the crisis came in the form of the quantum cascade, a wave of reality-destabilizing energy sweeping across the galaxy, causing civilizations to face their worst existential threat: paperwork. "The regulations are unraveling," screamed a council member, their tentacles tangled in an endless stream of forms that needed to be filled out in quintuplicate. Reality itself is being bureaucratized. The quantum cascade had already transformed 3 star systems into giant filing cabinets. Worlds were being converted into office spaces. Entire species were being reduced to middle management. This was exactly the sort of crisis that called for decisive military action, which was unfortunate because the Council had just appointed Commander Blitz-Ra as their supreme military leader. Blitz-Ra was what you'd get if you combined a peacock's sense of self-importance with a golden retriever's strategic thinking abilities and wrapped it all in a uniform with way too many medals. He had achieved his position through a combination of family connections and the Council's recent initiative to promote more optimistic personalities to leadership roles. "Fear not," Blitz-Ra announced to the Council chamber, his voice permanently stuck in what he considered a heroic volume. "I have already developed a plan to save Earth from this catastrophe." Zorp-X, who had been trying to contact Earth about the crisis and receiving increasingly polite vacation auto-replies, looked up in alarm. "Commander, we haven't even confirmed if Earth is in the Cascade's path yet." Exactly, Blitz-Ra struck what he thought was a dramatic pose, but looked more like someone trying to fight off a swarm of invisible bees. "They re so primitive they don't even know they re in danger. We must save them." Pod Unit 7 rolled forward, its processors whirring in what might have been exasperation. Statistical analysis suggests Earth's location is actually well outside the Cascade's projected path. Additionally, our latest long-range scans indicate they have erected some form of planetary shield that appears to be a primitive attempt at protection. Blitz-Ra interrupted, somehow managing to make his voice even louder. Clearly a cry for help. "Observe my tactical display." He proudly activated a hologram that showed his battle plan. It appeared to have been drawn with the galactic equivalent of crayons. "Step 1, he announced, pointing to a stick figure with a square head apparently meant to represent Earth. "We approach with our entire fleet." "Is that necessary for a planet that isn't actually threatened?" General Crix asked, her crystalline form vibrating with concern. "Step 2, Blitz-Ra continued, ignoring her completely. "We deploy the emergency bureaucracy shields." He pointed to what looked like a smiley face wearing a tie. "Those shields are still experimental," Zorp-X protested, his skin turning the mottled orange of technological doubt. "Last time we tested them, they turned an entire moon into a perpetual staff meeting." Step 3, Blitz-Ra was now practically bouncing with excitement. "We initiate emergency protocol. Friendship is mandatory." The Council chamber fell silent, except for the sound of Pod Unit 7 quietly calculating the statistical probability of this plan resulting in a diplomatic incident. The number it reached had so many zeros it briefly crashed its display. Meanwhile, Earth's latest response to their warning about the quantum cascade had just arrived. "Dear valued Galactic Council representatives, thank you for your detailed warning about the approaching bureaucratic reality distortion wave. We appreciate your concern and the attached 47,000-page emergency response procedure document. We are currently experiencing higher than usual volumes of existential threats. Your crisis has been placed in our queue and will be addressed in the order it was received. For immediate assistance, please consider the following options. 1. Have you tried turning the galaxy off and on again? 2. Our gift shop is offering a lovely selection of I Survived the Quantum Cascade t-shirts. 3. If the paperwork is becoming sentient, we recommend a strong cup of tea and a stern talk about boundaries. Best regards, Office of Terrestrial Extraterrestrial Relations. PS. We're still reviewing your previous 839 emergency warnings. Your patience is appreciated. Their flippant response only proves how desperate they are, Blitz Ra declared, pounding his chest with all four arms. Clearly they've gone mad with fear. We must save them immediately. Zorp-X, reading between the lines of Earth's message with growing unease, raised a tentacle. Perhaps we should consider a more diplomatic approach. They seem rather composed for a civilization facing imminent bureaucratic doom. Diplomacy is just warfare with more comfortable chairs, Blitz Ra proclaimed, a statement that would have made actual diplomats cry if they hadn't all been busy filing crisis response forms in triplicate. Commander General Crix tried one last time. At least let us run some basic scans of their defensive capabilities before we... No time. They need us. Fleet, prepare for Operation Humans are friends and they're going to like it. As alarms began blaring throughout the council station and ships started mobilizing, Zorp-X had a sinking feeling that they were about to learn exactly why Earth had been so polite all these years. He just hoped the lesson wouldn't be too expensive in terms of fleet insurance premiums. Operation Save Earth, whether they like it or not, began exactly as well as you'd expect when led by someone whose military strategy came primarily from reading the backs of cereal boxes. The Council's rescue fleet dropped out of hyperspace in Earth's solar system with all the subtlety of a disco party at a funeral. Ships blazed with emergency lights. Broadcast speakers blasted inspirational rescue music, mostly dramatic covers of We Are the Champions, and Commander Blitz Ra's flagship projected a giant holographic smiley face into space. Attention humans, Blitz Ra's voice boomed across all frequencies, including several that hadn't existed until he started speaking. We have come to save you. Please do not resist friendship. Earth's response was a brief message now entering automated defense space. Please check your inbox for liability waivers. They read delirious with fear, Blitz Ra declared. Look how they hide their terror behind bureaucratic procedures. That's when the fleet noticed something odd about Earth's orbit. Specifically the fact that it seemed to be surrounded by what looked suspiciously like a Dyson swarm of automated defense platforms. Very advanced, and very much not primitive defense platforms. Curious, Pod Unit 7 observed. These structures appear to be constructed from. Are those quantum-folded dark matter arrays? Obviously a clever illusion, Blitz Ra announced. Clearly they've painted cardboard boxes to look like advanced technology. Zorp-X's skin had turned the rare shade of ultraviolet that indicated extreme I told you so energy. Commander, I really think we should consider that perhaps we've made some incorrect assumptions about. Nonsense. Commence Operation Hug delivery. The fleet surged forward. That's when Earth's orbital platforms did something that made several council physicists need to lie down with a cold compress. They yawned. They actually yawned. Millions of supposedly primitive defense satellites simultaneously stretched and powered up like they'd just been woken from a pleasant nap. Earth sent another message. Automated Defense Network Fred is now online. Fred would like to remind visitors that unauthorized rescue attempts void the solar system's warranty. Fred Zorp-X asked nobody in particular. Friendly refusal enforcement device, came the reply from the nearest platform, in a voice that somehow managed to sound both incredibly advanced and slightly bored. But really everyone just calls me Fred. This is obviously. Actually, that's a really good acronym, Blitz Ra admitted, momentarily dropping his dramatic voice in appreciation. Thanks, said Fred. We have a whole department for that. You should see what we came up with for our stellar engineering division. Now, about this unauthorized rescue attempt. The Council fleet's sensors suddenly registered that they were surrounded by what appeared to be the technological equivalent of several thousand raised eyebrows. It deployed the emergency bureaucracy shields, Blitz Ra commanded, refusing to give up. The shields flickered to life around the Council ships. Fred observed them with what could only be described as professional courtesy. Oh, quantum bureaucracy fields. How retro. We used those for password protection on our children's toys last century. Very nostalgic. That's when the Council finally noticed something else about Earth. The entire planet appeared to be subtly out of phase with regular spacetime, as if it was simultaneously there and slightly to the left of there. You didn't think we'd let a little thing like a bureaucratic reality distortion wave bother us, did you? Fred asked cheerfully. We noticed that coming weeks ago. Filled out the paperwork to shift our quantum signature during our coffee break. Would you like to see our permits? The Council fleet hung in space, weapons systems wilting like flowers in a frost as the truth finally began to dawn on them. All those polite rejections of help, all those diplomatic deflections. They hadn't been coming from a primitive civilization too proud to admit they needed help. They'd been coming from an advanced civilization too polite to point out that they didn't need any. Would anyone like some tea? Fred offered. Only we've got about 7,000 different varieties of quantum-infused Earl Grey, and it seems a shame to waste it. Zorp-X's skin had cycled through so many colors of realization that he was now glowing like a disco ball of enlightenment. All this time, you were just being nice to us. Well, yes, Fred admitted. We didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Plus, your rescue attempts were actually quite entertaining. They really brightened up our Tuesday afternoons. Retreat, Blitzra finally ordered, his voice cracking. Retreat in a heroic and face-saving manner. But before the Council fleet could engage their engines, every ship received the same calendar invitation. You are cordially invited to Earth's official coming-out party as an advanced civilization. Dress code whatever you consider advanced. Please note that quantum formal wear is so last millennium. Buffet will be provided. Yes, we have vegan options for energy beings. The coming-out party was held in what Earth casually referred to as their little get-together space, a luxury station that made the Council's finest diplomatic vessels look like cardboard boxes held together with space tape. The station existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously, 4 of which were dedicated entirely to the buffet. Zorp-X sat in a corner, having what could only be described as an existential crisis. His skin had given up on trying to display his emotions and was now showing a technical difficulties test pattern. More quantum canap? Asked a human server, materializing from what might have been the 5th dimension. You had fusion power when we offered you fusion power, Zorp-X muttered. You had post-scarcity when we offered economic aid. You had everything. Oh, not everything, the server said cheerfully. We didn't have these lovely interspecies cultural exchanges. Would you like some non-Euclidean punch? It's a family recipe. Across the room, Commander Blitz-Ra was having his own crisis, but being Blitz-Ra, he was having it very loudly. But why didn't you tell us? He demanded of Jake Thompson, who had been invited as the guest of honor, having been promoted to Chief of Polite Deflection after his historic first contact. Well, that would have been a bit rude, wouldn't it? Jake replied, sipping what appeared to be tea that existed in a quantum superposition of every possible flavor. You were all so excited about helping us. We didn't want to rain on your parade. Pod Unit 7, who had spent the last hour trying to process the fact that its quantum processors were technically vintage by Earth standards, rolled up to join the conversation. Statistical analysis of human behavior requires complete recalibration. Previous models showed 99.9% probability of primitive civilization. New data suggests humans are just nice. Speaking of nice, General Creeks chimed in, her crystalline fawn reflecting the impossible colors of the station's decor. What about all those times we warned you about invasions? Were you ever actually in danger? Oh, those were very thoughtful warnings, Jake assured her. We put them all in our considerate aliens scrapbook. Would you like to see it? It's stored in a pocket universe we created just for mementos. A human child ran past their group, casually playing with what appeared to be a small galaxy in a marble. Mon, the kid yelled. Fred won't let me restructure the space-time continuum. What did we say about warping reality before dinner? Called back an exasperated parent. Zorp-X, who had been quietly rocking back and forth in his corner, suddenly burst out the resort proposals. You asked for the Tourism Bureau's contact information. Well, yes, Jake admitted. We thought it might be nice to let them build something. You know, as a gesture of goodwill. Although we did have to reject their first design. A black hole water slide seemed a bit excessive. But But Zorp-X's skin began displaying what appeared to be an error message in several dead languages. What about the quantum cascade? The bureaucratic reality wave? Weren't you even a little concerned? Oh, that, Jake waved dismissively. We've been using paperwork as an energy source for centuries. Where did you think we got the power for all this? He gestured at the impossible station around them. Bureaucracy is the most renewable resource in the universe. We're actually thinking of starting a recycling program. Commander Blitz Ra, who had been uncharacteristically quiet for almost 30 seconds, suddenly brightened. So, when we came to rescue you. We really appreciated the thought, Jake said kindly. The light show was lovely. Fred particularly enjoyed the music. Your defense grid is named Fred Zorp-X said weakly. Your super advanced reality warping defense grid prefers to be called Fred. Well, he said fundamental reality enforcement device sounded a bit pretentious. That's when the council representatives collectively realized something else. All those times they'd thought they were dealing with Earth's most important diplomatic office, they'd actually been corresponding with what was essentially Earth's equivalent of a neighborhood welcome committee. The Office of Terrestrial Extraterrestrial Relations General Crix began. Oh yes, it's a wonderful volunteer position, Jake explained. We take turns handling the correspondence. Little Billy from down the street is actually taking over next week. He's very excited about it. Did a whole school project on polite ways to decline galactic dominion. Zorp-X's skin finally settled on a color the exact shade of someone realizing they'd spent 50 years trying to save a civilization that had probably invented color itself. Would anyone like to see our solar system remodeling plans? Jake offered brightly. We're thinking of adding a few more dimensions, just to open up the space a bit. We've got some lovely swatches picked out for the fabric of reality. 1 month after what became known as the awkward revelation, or that time we tried to save a civilization that had probably invented saving, Earth finally joined the Galactic Council. The official reason, as stated in their acceptance letter, was we figured it would be impolite to keep saying no forever. The unofficial reason, as everyone knew but politely didn't mention, was that humans felt bad about the entire situation. It's hard to keep turning down someone who spent half a century trying to save you, even if they were trying to save you from problems you'd solved back when their species was still arguing about whether fire was too advanced a technology to use in public. The first change Earth implemented as a council member was the establishment of the Department of Interspecies Social Awareness, and generally not making things weird DSANG for short, though the acronym department was very proud of this one. Their first course offering advanced diplomatic subtlety, how to tell when someone is being polite vs. when they're actually dying. Zorp-X, still recovering from his existential crisis, but now sporting a new therapy-recommended skin tone called Acceptance Blue, found himself in the front row of the first class. The instructor was, of course, Jake Thompson. Now Jake began, standing in front of a hologram that existed in more dimensions than most species could perceive. Let's review some basic diplomatic signals. When someone says we should do lunch sometime, this usually means. He paused expectantly. They re-starving to death, Commander Blitz Ra shouted from the back row. No, Jake said patiently. It usually just means they're being polite. Similarly, when someone says we'll take that under advisement, they're probably not hiding a primitive technological base. They might just not want to tell you that your idea sounds like something a black hole would reject for being too destructive. Odd Unit 7, who had been upgraded with a social context processor, actually just a very small post-it note that said sometimes people are just being nice, raised its appendage. Query: when humans said they would circle back to our offers of help. We were just trying to let you down easy, Jake confirmed. Though we did appreciate the interpretative dance presentation about the benefits of joining the council. Very creative use of tentacles. The course continued with practical exercises, including reading between the lines without quantum vision and understanding that not every civilization needs saving, a guide for recovering heroes. Earth's integration into the council brought other changes too. The Emergency Response Committee was renamed the Maybe Check if it's actually an Emergency First Committee. The military budget was partially reallocated to a new Galactic Social Skills Workshop program. And Fred was appointed as the head of it, though he insisted on keeping his casual name because formal titles are so last quantum age. As for the quantum cascade crisis that had started the whole revelation, Earth solved it during a coffee break, using what they called a little administrative jutsu to turn the bureaucratic reality wave into what was essentially a galaxy-wide filing system. Really, Jake explained during the final lesson of his diplomatic course, the most important thing to remember is that sometimes, just sometimes, when a civilization keeps politely declining your help, it might not be because they're too proud, or primitive, or in denial. It might just be because they're too nice to tell you they've already invented 3 better versions of whatever you're offering. He paused, looking at his students with a warm smile. Also, we're seriously sorry about not mentioning the whole advanced civilization thing earlier. We just really didn't want to make anyone feel bad. Next time we achieve a major technological breakthrough, we promise to at least send a card. And so the galaxy learned an important lesson about diplomatic relations, while Earth learned that maybe, just maybe, being too polite could sometimes be as problematic as not being polite enough. Though, as Jake liked to say, at least it makes for a great story at intergalactic dinner parties. Speaking of which, would anyone like to join us for lunch? We know this lovely little place that exists slightly sideways from reality.